Welcome to the Explainer. We're going to tackle a topic today that a lot of us, we tend to put it off. It's about your legacy. And specifically, we're going to look at the two big tools that shape it, wills and trusts.
So what happens to everything you've built when you're gone? It's a huge question, right? And look, most of us think, I've got a will, I'm covered. But what if I told you that simple will might not be the shield you think it is? What if it could actually cause some major headaches for your family?
Yeah, that feeling of security can be a bit of a trap. It's like having a paper shield in a real battle. It makes you feel safe, but it can leave everything you've worked for totally exposed. So let's get into it and break down what's really going on here. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle that legacy question and the big problem with just having a will. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, will versus trust, the basics. After that, we'll figure out how to match the right tool to what you actually want to do. We'll even touch on some advanced stuff and, importantly, some warnings. And finally, we'll pull it all together to show you how a complete plan is built.
All right, first up, the legacy question. So what is this hidden problem I keep mentioning? Well, it all comes down to one little word that can create a mountain of trouble for your family. And that word is probate. Probate. So what is it? Think of it as a court-supervised process. But here's the kicker. It's public. That means your will, your assets, your family's business, it all becomes a public record. Yeah, anyone can go and look it up. It's time-consuming, it can be really expensive, and it's definitely not private.
And when I say expensive, I mean it. We're talking 2 to 7% of the total value of your assets. So let's put that in perspective. Say you have an estate worth $300,000. Probate could cost your family anywhere from $6,000 to $21,000. That's money that should be going to your loved ones, not to court costs and fees. Just gone.
But the cost and the lack of privacy might not even be the biggest problem. A will has some serious limitations. For one, it only kicks in after you die. So what happens if you get sick or become incapacitated? Well, your will is completely useless. It's just a piece of paper. It can also cause huge delays. We're talking up to 2 years. And it doesn't even cover everything like jointly owned property or life insurance.
Okay, so if a will has all these potential pitfalls, you're probably asking, is there a better way? And the answer is yes, absolutely. This is where trusts come into the picture. Let's dig into the basics and see what makes them so different.
I love this comparison because it makes it so clear. A will, it's basically a set of instructions for a judge to follow after you die. But a trust is something different. Think of it like a container, or maybe even like setting up your own little private company that you create to hold and manage your assets while you're still alive.
And this chart just lays it all out, plain and simple. Look at the differences. A will only become effective when you die. A trust is active during your lifetime. A will requires probate. A trust lets you avoid it completely. Your will becomes a public record. A trust is a private document. And maybe the most important one, incapacity planning. A will has zero plan for that. A trust? Yes, it's built right in.
So you can see why this isn't about one being better than the other in some abstract way. It's all about matching the tool to your goal. What are you actually trying to accomplish? Let's take a look.
Think about this for a second. What's your primary goal? Is it just to make sure your stuff goes to the right people? Or are you thinking bigger? Do you want to avoid court and keep things private? Are you worried about what happens if you can't make decisions for yourself? Maybe you even need some serious asset protection. Your answers here are what will point you to the right solution.
Sometimes the best way to understand this stuff is with a real-world story. So let's talk about Jane. She's a widow, and she did what she thought was the responsible thing. She had a will. She thought her family was totally covered. But then the unexpected happened.
When Jane got seriously ill, her family found out the hard way that her will didn't do a thing to help with incapacity. They were in a really tough spot, trying to manage her affairs without any legal authority. Can you imagine that stress? They couldn't get to her money to pay for her care, all because that will was only good after she was gone. That was her wake-up call. If she'd had a Revocable Living Trust, her successor could have stepped in and taken care of everything, no questions asked.
Okay, so that covers the basics. But what if your goals are, a bit more complex? What if you want to protect your legacy from creditors, or maybe set something up for future generations? For that, we need to move into some more advanced strategies and a few warnings you need to hear.
So let's talk about something called a Dynasty Trust. The name sounds pretty grand, right? And it is. Think of it as creating a family bank. It's an irrevocable trust that's designed to last for generations, maybe even forever. The whole idea is to let that wealth grow, free from estate taxes, and protected from things like creditors or even divorce for all your family members down the line.
Okay, let's look at another scenario, one that a lot of people worry about. Meet Uncle Bob. He's 78, and he's starting to notice some early signs of cognitive impairment. His biggest fear? That the insane cost of long-term care is going to force his kids to sell the family home.
So, what did Bob do? First, he created what's called an irrevocable trust. Then, he transferred his home and some other assets into it, and he named his kids as the beneficiaries. And just like that, those assets were now protected. They wouldn't be counted if he needed long-term care, and they'd be safe from the state trying to recover costs later. But this is the crucial part. He had to give up direct control to get that protection. It's a trade-off, and it's a huge part of these advanced strategies.
Now, I have to give you a really big word of caution here. These strategies are powerful, but they're also complicated. There are people out there, as this quote points out, who make false promises about protecting your assets from care home fees. You have to be so careful. If someone is selling you a simple, foolproof plan, you need to be very, very wary.
Because here's the risk. It can lead to accusations of what's called deliberate deprivation of assets. Basically, if it looks like you moved your assets around specifically to avoid paying for care, the local authorities can challenge it. They can actually try to undo the whole thing. It really comes down to that old saying, if a plan sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is.
Okay, so after all of that, the public courts, the incapacity issues, the advanced strategies, what's the right answer for you? How do you build a complete plan? Well, here's the big reveal. It's usually not a simple choice of one tool over the other.
The solution isn't thinking, should I get a will or a trust?
No, the real solution is often a will and a trust. So how do they work together? You use a special kind of will called a pour-over will. Think of it like the ultimate safety net. Its whole job is to catch any assets that you might have accidentally left out of your trust during your lifetime, and then it pours them into the trust after you pass away. This is what makes the whole thing seamless. The trust is your main vehicle, and the pour-over will is its essential partner, making sure nothing falls through the cracks.
So that brings us to the final question, the one you have to ask yourself. What story will your estate plan tell? Is it going to be a story of false security, of public court battles and unexpected problems for your family? Or will it be a story of foresight, of privacy, and of lasting protection for the people you love? It's a big question, but it's one we all have to answer.